It's time for a little Funky Friday. From their funky hidden headquarters, your hosts, Keith and Gerry. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Minefield. I'm Keith, and I'm Gerry. Right? Hold on. I just had my second COVID vaccine, and it knocked the shit out of me for 2 days. And I am finally having my first good day since the shot. Keith is green with envy that I suffered,
yes,
and he didn't have to suffer as much for his second because he had the Pfizer and I had the Moderna. And but anyway, we've brought our Pop Culture Minefield and friends. So we have our panel joined in with our special guest, Kamran Pasha. We deeply appreciate you coming on the show there, Kamran. We're all big fans of yours, and I'm hoping that Script Doctor will rejoin us.
I've been on several live streams with Script Doctor. I consider him my brother in the industry. I'd love him to come back.
He's top secret is who he is, but we all know who he is as a writer, and he knows his shit.
Well, I don't know who he is, but I know who he is.
No, I'm speaking. Yeah. Anyway,
figuratively, yes.
Yes, figuratively.
Yes, Gerry, you are speaking. Good job.
And Yeti is here for me to shit on, and Fat Steven and Sven, not only, is here. And we're all here to ask Kamran lots of questions. And the master of questions, of course, is the guy that is my fellow co-host, Keith. Keith, open us up on some awesome, amazing intellectual questions.
I love his shower curtain.
Yeah, he hides in his bathtub to do his show.
He has a thing for rubber duckies.
Rubber ducky.
Okay, gentlemen. I just wanted to, let's just go ahead and continue to talk about what we were talking about just before we went live. Mm-hmm. You know, there have been a lot of disagreements that have come up talking about various films, usually geek comic book films, that have had problems during their production. Whether you're talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League or even problems with some of the X-Men films, and usually going all the way back to and including Superman with Richard Donner. Yeah. You know, what we were talking about, what really makes that problem? Could you reiterate what we were talking about before?
Sure, we were talking about the line between commerce and being true to the original source material. You know, the industry, we always say this is show business, not show. They're trying to make money, right? That's the idea of it. And so especially when it comes to comic book properties, there's always been this internal debate going back decades, as you pointed out, by studio executives as to, are we trying to cater to the readers of the comic book and the fans of the franchise? We're trying to cater to the general market. And of course, they want to sell as many tickets as possible. So the answer is always what the general market. But at the same time, they can't alienate the original fans. So there's the line of where making it broadly understandable to people who don't know all the mythology, right? Versus not offending the people that do, keep shifting on project to project and within projects. And so, like I said, going back to Richard Donner, people can't, would Superman really do that? They were debating that back in like the 1970s, right? So it's a line that we see that has not been figured out and continues to be controversial.
Okay, cool.
Follow-up question.
Okay, I'll keep going then.
Please, let's keep going, please.
So what we've seen this week from Ann Sarnoff and her particular view on the situation with Warner Brothers, I mean, that's really just all part of what you were saying, that it's just a differing view, even though it seems to be different from someone who seems to be above her within the hierarchy of AT&T and Warner Media.
Yeah, I mean, as we've seen, and I get into a lot of trouble when I talk about it, but as we've seen within Lucasfilm, there's internal politics as well, right? And each of these people that is now currently leading a studio has their own powerful life legacy there. You've got Miss Kathleen Kennedy, who's had a very long legacy of being involved in a lot of the most important films of the last 30, 40 years. And then Miss Sarnoff is a very successful executive, and she's from a very old school Hollywood family. Like, I believe her father was one of the founding, one of the very early people in CBS, right? So we're talking about TV royalty, right? People that established this industry. So that family is very powerful. And so
David Sarnoff, yeah.
And so what you have is people who feel that they are not just executives clawing their way to the top, but they have a support base already due to their past accomplishments, due to their connections, all of that. They are more able to buck the trend of the big boss, right? And I will say this: I've never cared about whether it gets me in trouble or not, but there's also the moment in Hollywood where some people are protected. The white woman is very protected right now. For all the talk of Black Lives Matter, now it's Asian Life Matters. Muslim lives have never mattered, but whatever. But so now they always have the various minority that they claim to champion of the weak. In the last several years, it's been the white woman's in charge, right? Because the white male is the problem, even though they're still in charge. You just got to put the white woman up front. And so there's the politics of that. And so white women feel more comfortable being, the person that bucks the trend officially and establishes their power than they might have been 15 years ago.
Well,
yeah, that's a good point. Because you don't see it for all the talk of being oppressed. People don't act at all like they're being oppressed. It seems the exact opposite. It's like stepping on someone while claiming you're the one being attacked.
Well, we can make an entire multi-hour discussion on racism within Hollywood, which is very real, and uses the conversation of race in the national culture to hide it, right? And so, I've experienced that. I'm obviously a brown person. I'm a practicing Muslim, which is not common in Hollywood, and I've experienced all of that bigotry from people who very proudly will post, I voted for Hillary, I voted for Biden, and they have their politics out there, and yet they're often the most virulent form of racism, which is a racism of low expectations. They expect you to be mediocre, and then when they discover you as a minority are not mediocre, that's actually quite threatening, because they put you in the slot of the person that's going to serve as, look, we have the brown guy, we have the black guy, we've got the Asian person, we've got
that's the thing I've never understood. The way that they're treating certain individuals and races. I would find it very insulting for someone to say, oh, you need this hand up, you need this step up, instead of believing you're capable of earning it in any way.
Well, anyone who follows me knows I'm a big passionate follower of Malcolm X, and Malcolm X was very passionate about how the various actions that were being done in the 60s in name of opening up opportunities for minorities were being done for exactly this purpose, which was, here, let's give you this handout because we actually believe that you're not capable of getting this on your own, and we don't want you to get it on your own, because that's actually a problem, right? And leaving the plantation. And that industry is structured like that.
Well, they're also going with the fact that they think, hey, look, I voted for this person. Look, that just because you voted for this person, or you're propping up this person, or you hired this person, just because you said that and you did this doesn't mean it makes you not racist, or doesn't make you this phobic or this ism. You're still can be that. You're using it as like a prop shield, and you're not only making what you're saying empty with the meaning behind it, but you're using them, the person or the people in general, as a billboard to protect you from so you can continue down the same road you're doing. And
one of go ahead,
please.
And it's, what is that? It gets to the point where they all just keep repeating the same word salad, and the people around them are actually beginning to realize, like, if we take Hollywood out of it, they're already doing that. They're smelling their own farts when they keep repeating the same things. It's like they get their own cue cards, and that's what they read off every day. Yeah. But the ethnicities in general are picking up on this in general. picking this up in general. And if we go through the normal society, like with Twitter, when you get that same white woman all the time going, well, you know, you can still be there. And then you have the other person going, you do realize you are the definition of what you're telling other white people are, right? You're
Dave Chappelle said that. He said the white woman's, you know, telling us she's in charge of fixing racism, but she's in the driver's seat, right? Or she's in the passenger seat, telling the guy where to go.
She's navigating, exactly.
Well, another good example of that. Oh, I was going to say another good example of that is on the sexual side of things. You know how, you know, being gay right now is something that they want to help people who are, you know, gay or trans or whatever, and how you had someone that was actually in charge of that in the case of Star Trek who actually got fired from that position and replaced by someone who isn't gay. And it's pretty much the definition of what they said the problem was: straight white man. And
often it's because that person, the gay person, the minority person, isn't saying the words they need them to say.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
They're actually being authentic and they're being real, and that's not what they want.
They're just being a person.
Yeah,
yeah.
And that is
back on the bullshit.
Yeah, that's the current state of Star Trek Discovery and everything that's come after, because the person that was originally hired to be in charge of it just happened to be. You know,
well, what Hollywood wants, this part of Hollywood wants, and the way I see it, and you tell me what you think, Kamran, is that they want a caricature of that thing that they want represented. Exactly. Rather than just a person, they want somebody who is just, like, to them, they want somebody who's like this all the time to represent gay.
It really pissed me off when, I can't remember her name. They came out promoting this trans person was going to be the first transgender character on Star Trek.
Right. Deep Space Nine covered that.
Are you fucking?
Oh wait, no. Next Generation did.
Yeah,
Riker.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was.
Riker fell in love with the trans character, as well as Beverly Crusher fell in love with Trill. Yeah, Bajoran. Yeah,
who got the symbiote replaced with a woman. Yeah, right.
They're just now starting to talk about it. Whatever, fuck off with that.
It's like you don't know what you're talking about. Star Trek has always been progressive and diverse.
Interracial right on television.
The original series was the vehicle for the first interracial kiss on television. Yeah, for crying out loud! It's part
of the problem culturally is we have a generation. Now we've talked about generations, and there'll be people in the audience and people maybe on this broadcast. I can't see your faces, so who may be of the younger generations. I'm Generation X, so I'm sort of from the '80s, and we just like to keep it real. And so the younger generations, and certainly Hollywood is catering to this belief among some people in the younger generation that they're the first ones to do everything. And this is the result of actually coming at the end of a long historical process where people, the generations before us, our generation, have struggled to overcome a lot of bad things. And we've come to a much better world than we knew in the 70s, right, in many ways. And now they're like, well, what do we do? What do we fix now? The only way they can fix things is to pretend none of it was fixed.
Exactly. Hey, I want to go to the hold on, guys. I want to go to the chat. Thank you, Mexican Iron Man, for the $14.99 US dollars. A great discussion by a great panel. Howdy, Kamran. I love how he intentionally misspells my name. Gerry, because I'm the other Gerry. Gerry Beekler is the big Gerry, and then I'm the bigger, fatter Gerry, and I spell my name correctly with a Gerry. And of course,
Irish spelling. What's the origin of that?
That's the original Irish spelling, and it was originally a hard G.
Whatever helps you sleep at night.
Yeah, it's like I love it when I talk to these heathens that know nothing of history and language. But anyway, Kamran, I wanted to talk to you about something that has come up in the conversations many times, and you have a unique voice in this because it's so rare. I only have one other Muslim friend, and that was the stupidity of a favorite actor of mine, Ben Affleck, when he was on Bill Maher and referred to Islam as a race. What is your
I
reaction?
want to comment on that. So there was a lot of
Yes.
stupidity there, but there was actually a lot more stupidity on Bill Maher's side. So yes, Islam is obviously not a race; it's a religion, like Christianity and people of all races. And the large number of Muslims are Southeast Asian, right? Indonesian,
That's
right? Malaysian, right? My spiritual Sufi masters are in West Africa, right? And so Arabs are a very small part of it, so it's not a race. But I will defend Ben in this way, okay? So because Ben is actually an interesting guy. He actually he did Middle Eastern studies was his major in college, right? And in that heated conversation, his issue with Bill Maher, because I have an issue with Bill Maher, and most of my
I don't like Bill Maher.
Yeah, but I just want to explain. Bill Maher in general is anti-religion in general, but he's got a bee in his bonnet for Islam. He really dislikes it. He's said stuff that you think this guy's allegedly liberal, libertarian. He said stuff. He's been very open about. We should profile these guys. He said, if I had to sit next to one of these bearded dudes on an airplane, I'd move, right? He's very open about it. He's never backed down from it. And that's what Ben Affleck was attacking him for, which is that the guy is actually, he's a religious bigot in general, but he is very proudly an anti-Muslim bigot. He owns it. And what's interesting about that is that he is saying what most of the people I work with in Hollywood privately think. Because Bill Maher is out there being Mr. Liberal guy or libertarian, whatever the hell he identifies as today, right? But he's out there saying a lot of the beliefs that the powerful people in this industry have, and especially when it comes to Islam and Muslims. But they won't say that out loud because it's gauche, it's rude, right? Whereas his whole thing is about being gauche and rude. And so I'm glad he puts it out there. But the guy's a real sort of villainous character from my point of view. And as people know, I'm personally very conservative, and I'm philosophically very libertarian, right? And so I agree with some of the things Maher says, but I just don't like him, and so I don't tune into him. And that's where that argument was coming from. So I will give Affleck credit for that because he was standing up to Maher's very open bigotry.
Yeah, and and that's the thing. Bigotry is different than racism, and I try to explain to people.
That word. Yes.
Yeah, bigotry was the word he should have used, and I wouldn't have openly mocked him for it because I mocked Ben Affleck for saying racist. I'm like, come on, dumbass, seriously.
Well, and racism has become, and unfortunately, as it has been. Islam
it's what you and I were joking about before the show, that people use the wrong words and they get used to using it incorrectly. It's like I was watching a classic episode of Star Trek with a friend of mine, and she said, classic Star Trek is so misogynist. And I said, it is not misogynist, it's sexist, mildly. It's very progressive in some ways, but it had them wearing the cute skirts, and they were usually there for eye candy. But the fact is that sexist, not misogynist.
And Kirk was banging everybody.
I remember an episode where he gets a new yeoman, and it's a young woman, and he's talking to Bones about what the hell, like couldn't you find somebody older, a man, like why do I get these young women or something along those lines? He didn't want a young woman as a yeoman
because he couldn't control his testosterone.
Exactly.
Yeah, because he was. I think he was frustrated by that. By the way, this is my wife. She is saying, "Shh, stalking, not Gerry."
Well, you know what? Let me at least defend Star Trek a little bit on that. Part of it was that, but part of it was also the fact that on the show, with Roddenberry being a military man, it was the fact that, having to bring in much younger and younger kids, because Kirk is supposed to be one of the youngest captains they've ever had on Star Trek.
Captain is
35.
35.
But he's supposed to be 35 years old during the course of the show when it starts.
Yeah.
So someone that's obviously way, way on the younger side is kind of a little disturbing to him because of the dangers of what they're facing. It
wasn't coming from a libido point of view.
Yeah,
because he is a complex character, and he's ultimately the hero. And I will say this, and I actually want to address Eric O'Sullivan's question here in a second. But I was a big fan of the sort of non-canonical novels of Star Trek, right? That are out.
Oh, love those, love them.
Hundreds of them, right? And one of them, I remember there was a conversation. I think it was actually one of the Star Trek Next Generation novelizations or novels. That there was a conversation where they explained that history was cyclical, and that that the period that Kirk was in was very much like the 60s. People had just come out of this intense Romulan war and all that other stuff, and so there was a lot of it was like the Roaring 20s. So women were dressing differently. There was a lot more. It was a sexualized culture, and that the period of of the Next Generation had just come out of it. So that was an actual proper understanding of history, because I have said this, and I believe this, history is cyclical. When we enter 400 years from now, we will be going through periods of Puritanism, and periods of libertinism, even on other planets, because that's human nature. And that novel pointed out, it was perfectly natural for cultures to, go through these cycles, and that was what was happening in the Kirk era.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why a show like, say, Babylon 5, that was one of the things that I really liked about that show, because they didn't hide from a lot of human nature.
No,
their thing wasn't to build the future as being utopian. Theirs was based on humanity. Humanity's always been savage with a mixture of science and wanting to discover and learning new things. But it's all part of that complex mixture of who we are. It's never really going to go away. We're just playing the same story out again and again and again.
And it wouldn't be interesting if it went away. I mean, the idea of evolving us past our human condition, it's a boring group of human beings. Angels are boring. Angels are boring. They want us to evolve into these perfect beings. They're not interesting. You can't make drama out of them, right? That's why you have to have the story of Lucifer, right? Or Iblis in Islam, or rebels against God, right? You have to have them. Otherwise, it's just not an interesting story. But, and I'm also a huge fan of Battlestar Galactica, the most recent iteration of it, because it's very human people and religion is so central to it, and one of the issues that I've had arguments with on Star Trek is that people have said to me, well, Roddenberry was anti-religion. He's not. I know for a fact he wasn't anti-religion. I know for a fact because I was asked and I actually pitched it. Unfortunately, I didn't sell it at the time. Gene Roddenberry in the 70s had been working on developing a TV series on demonic possessions. And he actually did like a TV movie that was going to be a pilot, right?
I was called Spectre? No.
Spectre, right? And so I was asked by the Roddenberry company to look at adapting Spectre as a current series. And so I was given access to Gene's original notes and his original typewritten notes and handwritten notes about the ideas for Spectre. And he was absolutely fascinated with the idea of interdimensional beings, angels, demons, God. It's in his own writing. And he was promoting this after Star Trek, that he wanted to examine faith, right? And so, there are certain people like Mr. Brandon Braga and others are very openly atheistic, right? And so they certainly put that slant to the next generation. There was that episode where, the planet where the people had evolved past God, and then they saw the starship, and then they started believing, and it was all terrible that they believed in myths again, right? And so those are agendas of a next generation of writers, literally the next generation of writers. But Mr. Roddenberry wasn't that.
Well, the original series had a lot of religious undertones.
Absolutely. There was the Christ episode, the Sun episode, yeah.
Well, but you're also dealing with a lot of writers that had a lot of experience going into Star Trek. Many of them had written for Twilight Zone and other programs. And also, you're dealing with a generation of creatives, most of whom seem like they fought in World War II. This is an entire generation that had actually been active in war. They knew what it was like. So they weren't trying to really prop it up as being, flag waving one way or another.
It's survival. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about Kirk and company in Star Trek, because notice I call it Star Trek. I don't call it Original Trek because that's the name of the show. It's Star Trek.
Star Trek, yeah. Okay, is that an issue? Original Trek? Okay, whatever. I'm learning new.
but the thing is that, as Cameron had said, you've got characters that are coming out of a major conflict, and it was the war with the Romulans. And just like many of the people in Hollywood, we're coming out of World War II. And you have people that have actually fought a war. This is not something that you gladly take on. And it gives and it lends weight to a lot of the decisions made by Kirk and company in that show. Whereas when you deal with all the other Star Trek shows, Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, good shows, they don't really have that weight to them with a lot of the people that write those shows.
Although I will say for DS9 was different. I worked with Stephen Bear, who created the show. He was my first showrunner on Twilight Zone when I worked with Forrest Whitaker on Twilight Zone. And Ira was in some ways the black sheep, the odd sheep of the family, right? And he wanted to do something that was some people. I mean, DS9 is still controversial because it had a very complex worldview, and it has a much darker worldview of human nature than the very optimistic Next Generation did, right? And so so that was an effort to go back to some of Roddenberry's deeper musings.
And again, I think that when it comes to Brian Fuller and what he originally wanted to do with Star Trek Discovery, I think he was also going to try to head down that road. But again, he
T-shirts in the
obviously
back.
wasn't the proper person for that program, according to Les Moonves and CBS. So they fired him and brought in the current people that are
there was.
it.
I mean, I want to be careful what I say because I have a couple of people I've worked with who are staff writers on the new show, so I don't want to insult their work. But I will tell you, what I know is that it was a very heavily delayed process to get that project moving forward. So Mr. Fuller is absolutely a genius, but he's one of these geniuses that does things in his own time, in his own way. And that's harder to do in a very structured place like CBS, right? And so, after like a year and a half when the show hadn't progressed towards anything that it could actually film, some decisions have to be made, right? And and so that I think there were practical matters of how you have a visionary who's just doing his own thing versus a timetable, and that's what it came down to.
Yeah.
Well, you had brought up something earlier, Keith, that the kind of writers and Gene Roddenberry and Rod Serling both surrounded themselves with the celebrated science fiction writers of their time. And these were the best, still, in my opinion, the best to this day. And there are some that are out there now that should be on these shows writing. And when Twilight Zone decides to start up again, the first thing they should be doing is looking for the most celebrated writers of science fiction. And instead, they find these unknown people who have nothing to do with science fiction to join their sci-fi show. And I found season 1 to be banal, and or some people say it banal, redneck kind of people, banal. It just it lacked any true verisimilitude that you expect from something that Rod Serling would have been associated with.
Since my career launched with the Twilight Zone, I was a staff writer on UPN.
Yes, and I liked your work.
Yeah,
on
and
Twilight
it was
Zone.
actually a good show. I mean, we were on this network that no one was paying attention to, but we did some very compelling episodes. Even though we got lambasted, people were like,
I enjoyed the Forrest Whitaker. I enjoyed the Forrest Whitaker series.
Well, thank you. I was proud of it. But we actually had writers from the '80s series, which was I love the '80s version.
Yeah, the '80s.
J. Michael Straczynski and his crew.
Yeah.
Another example of J. Michael Straczynski.
Yeah, once more, Keith talking about Straczynski. No, please, Keith, bring him up. How much you love him.
That's good. You got to promote Mr. Straczynski. It's good.
I love him too. It's just, I swear to God, Keith, every show he brings up Straczynski.
hey! You can't get in the way of a man's bromance. He's sitting in the shower. He's talking about his rubber duck, and he loves Straczynski. Let him have that.
Does everybody else hear Fat Steven, or is he just a figment of my imagination, my subconscious talking to me?
No, I can hear Fat Steven's icon. That's distracting.
By the way, Cameron, T-shirt has joined the conversation. T-shirt is a friend of mine who's a historian, like myself, but also has a really interesting perspective on pop culture.
Mm-hmm. So, hey, Kamran, salam. It's good to meet you.
Pleasure, T-shirt. Pleasure. And I
meant to greet you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. That's good. See, this is cultural. This is appropriating my greeting. I love it.
This is the hand gesture, right?
Yeah. I can only do it on one hand.
If you do that and you hold in the other hand, you have a middle finger. It's
the
fuck yourself.
Leonard Nimoy peaked when he wasn't supposed to during the ceremony,
the rabbinic ceremony, right?
And eternity saw them with both hands standing over the thing,
doing certain blessing. Yes.
Yep.
Is this better, Cameron? Are you happy now? Is this better?
A lot of people, and I want to point out that
Leia works for me always.
Oh hell yeah, especially slave Leia. I want to point out that there's been a lot of comments in the chat that all of us miss your beautiful girl posts.
I miss them too.
We got to get you back on Twitter. That is just, it's a bunch of bullshit.
I remain suspended without any explanation and without any light in the end of the tunnel. I actually engaged the Better Business Bureau to say, hey, can we find out what happened here? And the BBB actually contacted them, and they're just getting automated responses saying, please give us your case number. I'm like, oh, here's the case number. Please give us your case number. So I'm getting and so they're not looking into it. They basically, I am of the view that I was pulled because of my controversial or truth telling to Lucasfilm, because right after I made some very specific comments to Lucasfilm employees, I got pulled. And there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of influence of Lucasfilm and Disney getting rid of critics right now, and that to me is a sign that they're in serious trouble, because you don't do that when you're the king and you're unafraid. You don't do that. And so there's things happening there, and they decided, look, this loudmouth screenwriter guy, he's actually somewhat credible, he's actually for real, right? He's actually making stuff, he's got an agent, he's like got a real credit. We can't have this guy talking about
I have a question to ask to that, Cameron, with that. Do you think they're behind the dislike strategy that YouTube is pulling right now?
Sure, of course. Because do you
think we hurt Star Wars feelings though, because we keep downvoting all the crappy writing they're doing? So eventually they're gonna take it away. You know what you're gonna get? A whole comment section of people just saying dislike.
Yeah, eventually they'll take the comment sections away. Because, that's the power of Disney. Disney is an incredibly powerful company. When I say Disney, I don't think Bob Chapek is sitting there saying shut down YouTube. I think it's Lucasfilm using the umbrella power of Disney to do what it's got to do, because this, it's not some great conspiracy. I was on a channel. They're like, man, you believe in this conspiracy theories? Not some great conspiracy. All you need is one person they're all friends. So you need somebody inside Lucasfilm making a phone call to a friend who's somebody inside of Twitter, and they make the change. Right? This isn't at the levels of the CEOs fighting it out, right? It's just buddies saying, hey, this guy's a hassle. Get rid of this guy. This thing's causing a problem for him, boss. Can you shut down these down likes? Sure, why not? That's what's being done there. It's a club, right? And it's a club supporting it.
Isn't there a word for that? Isn't that called collusion?
It's a cabal, whatever you want to call it. But that's where we are right now with these media platforms.
I think you hit on something earlier that speaks very true, and why they had to basically deplatform you without giving you any reason, and that's because you dispel the narrative, and you're very vocal about dispelling that narrative.
And I'm speaking for people that are much more famous than me, who tell me, man, I hate Kathleen Kennedy, I hate Lucasfilm, but they're never going to say it publicly, and and so they'll tell me, and I'm like, well, I know I'm not alone. In fact, that is the mainstream view among screenwriters. I know that Lucasfilm is a garbage place. The storytelling is bad. Nobody wants to work there. That's the mainstream view. But no one wants to no one wants this drama, right? And I've had 20 years of having my ass kicked in this town, as a Muslim guy. I don't care anymore, because I tried playing along and being Mr. Nice Guy with everybody. I still got my ass kicked. So whatever.
Cameron, you gotta look at it this way. You have bigger cojones than a lot of people in Hollywood, and you should hold that with pride. You need a wheelbarrow for each. You need a wheelbarrow for each one. You should strut down the street, and be like, at least I can say my mind and not give in to the cowardice that the rest of Hollywood is. And I think that's why a lot of people love you, respect you, and want to hear you, because you're genuine, and you have no F's to give. You are that koala in the rain.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. It's, again, no F's to give. I played along with this town like everybody else. I want to advance my career. I'll be working at the A-list, right? And very early on, I discovered that playing along and being nice and just repeating the narrative and saying, nodding, and you're right, boss, it didn't actually help me. People had already put me in going back to our earlier conversation, they had already put me in the box of, well, this guy's only here because we need to be able to say we've got a Muslim guy or a brown guy, whatever. We don't really want him to advance. So whatever he says doesn't matter. And then, this guy's really good at it. Well, we definitely don't want him to advance. So, who cares what he's saying? And eventually, you're right. Who cares what I'm saying? Okay, fine.
That type of attitude,
say what I'm going to think now.
That type of attitude isn't exclusive to Hollywood either.
Of course,
I've worked in factories all my life, and it's the same way in a place like that. It doesn't matter how much you kiss up to the boss. It doesn't matter how much more effort you put in above other people. They see you doing that, and they're just gonna expect that from you. And you're going to be the workhorse, or the what's the word I'm thinking of? The mule, Captain. Basically.
Yeah.
Tim has a good question here. Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, and I was just putting it in the chat, but I'll say it out loud as well. My YouTube channel is my name, Kamran Pasha 72, and I just put it in there in the chat as well. So if anyone just clicks that, right now, all I'm currently using YouTube for, there's only a couple of videos on there. I'm just using it purely for creative stuff. I have some short films and trailers and things that I've directed that I'm putting up there. But for me, I love coming on channels like this and speaking my viewpoints. I want to keep my YouTube channel as purely a place where I can put my own art out there. And so that's what you're going to find there. You're going to find a lot of my political commentary, social commentary there, unless it's in the form of one of my films.
Oh, I think that's great. Kind of from my point of view, I've seen Star Trek as kind of a strange history as far as how it works anyway. It's like, because you originally started out with Pike, who was kind of like a very, straight up main average kind of guy, captain, who was like, the stereotypical kind of normal dude.
Yeah, and the older guy who's seen it all kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And then they moved to Shatner, which was, the more wild and crazy, make out with every alien you can find. Yeah. But even then between the seasons, it started to change because Roddenberry took a little bit less creative control in second season and Kuhn took over more. And that's when we started to have more of the fun episodes that people were enjoying. And then apparently Roddenberry didn't like that, so he pulled the reins back in on season 3. And then years later, we had TNG, which, everybody remembers that first season was kind of hard to watch, but it got better.
What's happening here? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It got better. And then right about the point where Roddenberry died, that was like the creative reins were pulled off the show and people just started taking it in all kinds of directions that a lot of people found to be kind of either dismissive or ingenuous to Roddenberry's original vision, because he didn't want all the wars and everything else. But that's what was big.
I want to point something out about season 3. Roddenberry left Star Trek at the onset of season 3 because he saw what was happening with CBS. And he just decided to go put his efforts elsewhere. And that's why we got such a weird, uneven season of episodes. And some of the shittiest episodes of Star Trek were from season 3. And like Spock's brain, for goodness sake. And so, as much as he loves Star Trek, we have to remember he did bail and abandon Star Trek for a short period of time. And he started doing those, like, what was that show called? After Earth or whatever that. He did something with John Saxon.
Earth 2
or something. And I own those movies. They're on my hard drive somewhere.
I will say this, though. Spock's brain is terrible, but the chicks are hot. The alien chicks.
Yeah, they are.
You're like, brain, what is brain? I could quote that. A child could do it. I could quote that.
Now, by the way, Force of Light Entertainment, why aren't you in here with us? I sent you an invite.
Come on in, girls. Come on.
Yeah. This is even Cameron.
I hate this high
Cameron is tired of the sausage party. Yes. Get in here and join it. Good God, we need some estrogen in here.
They're afraid of all the toxic masculinity.
Come on, so.
Well, if I continue,
please.
Like I was gonna say, the 90s and the
Hi, Rebecca, we love you.
Were really, like, I think the best Star Trek episodes that we had, because we had like TNG, we had DS9, which had some great narratives. We had Voyager, which it had good episodes, it had bad episodes, it had some really interesting characters, and then we had
trying to go back to just the exploration of unknown worlds kind of thing. Yeah,
right, and that was good. And then we jump forward to modern day, and it's just like, what in the absolute hell happened? This is not the Star Trek I recognize at all.
Kurtzman was born. That's what happened.
Oh, well, there's that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's interesting. I don't know either of the gentlemen personally. Obviously, I know of them, Kurtzman and Mr. Orsi. I have been told by friends of mine who know both of them well that maybe Mr. Orsi had a more traditional vision of Star Trek, and when they parted ways, it was the guy who would have made the Star Trek that I think we would have all wanted to watch.
We believe that religiously. Keith and I are big Orsi fans, and we're really pissed that Kurtzman did what he did.
Well, the sad thing
Kurtzman seems to be one of these people that he seems to constantly wind up doing something that someone he's either had beef with or doesn't like him or whatever. He ends up doing something that person would have done better. Whether it's this or even something like Clarice, which is something that when you think about it, was actually his predecessor's, one of his better gigs. And then he goes into, well, I'm just going to do Clarice. Yeah, your predecessor does Hannibal, receives all sorts of praise, has a dedicated fan base, and you're going to do Clarice. Fine, it's weird how that seems to happen. And his former partner's a big Star Trek fan. Kurtzman could almost care less about it, and he ends up doing it. I mean, I'm not a big believer in coincidences, but it's weird how that seems to always.
Well, there's no coincidence in Hollywood, and what it is, when we go back to the idea of a club, once you enter into the club, it pretty much the club, gives you what you want, well, as long as you're in the club, and usually that has a lifetime membership, as Ms. Kennedy has proven, right? And so I've been trying to get into the club for 20 years, and I've come very close, and people are like, "Oh, you? Yeah, no, it's not for you, buddy." And so there's a blessing in that because I go off and I do what I want to do. And often what happens in the club is a certain laziness sets in, and all you do is try to remake other people's stuff, right? Because you're already now, you're at the top of the game in the town's perspective, right? And so and then you actually have to prove yourself. You don't want to at that point because most people in the club aren't necessarily there for talent, and so the easiest thing to do is to just mimic and remake other people's stuff, right? The people in the town, people with talent, are often not in the club because they're threatening to the people that are there without it.
Which is sad because with all of the diversity preaching that they are going after right now, you would think they would just be like all shit, fire, and storm to get a person of Pakistani descent.
Well,
with your background.
The interesting thing is the last 3 years, actually last 4 years, I have witnessed. Suddenly, when I arrived in this town in 2001, I was pretty much the only Muslim writer that I knew of. I discovered there was one other writer, an African-American woman who's very successful, Mara Akil, who I didn't know at the time, but we were the two only ones that's in the industry. And then in the last 4 years, suddenly there was an onrush of young writers right out of school, right, who are Muslim background, and the town was embracing them. And they're embracing them because they're not like me.
Check your Twitter DM.
I'm a traditional conservative Muslim, right? And the younger generation was coming in was saying the things that the town wanted to hear, all the stuff about gender non-binary and this and that, right? And they were repeating all this stuff, which isn't very traditionally Islamic, but that's sort of where the culture is being promoted right now. And so the younger kids are saying the stuff that they want to hear, so they're promoting them. But at the same time, they're promoting them to stay inside the box. So they don't actually want them in the club. They want them. I was a little bit of the poster boy in doing the Bush era as the Muslim guy. And then when Obama came, they got rid of me, right? And then there was no poster boy. But now you're getting other poster boys and girls who will serve the political agenda, who are Muslim, right? But who are very progressive Muslim, not reflective of the culture, of the general faith.
I was going to ask you, isn't that that whole gender non-binary stuff, isn't that pretty anti-Muslim anyway? Like
most Muslims are not on board with
that's what I'm saying. Isn't the religion against that kind of stuff? Is what
most traditional religions are more about male and female reproduction, right? And that's kind of go forth and multiply.
Be fruitful and multiply.
Well, yeah. And so most of the biblical religions, I think the Asian religions are a little more flexible, like Hinduism and all that stuff, have more openness towards people that are not necessarily mainstream within the sexual world, or at least not majority within the sexual world. And so there's some exceptions. The perception is that Islam is very homophobic. We throw them off of roofs. That actually doesn't really happen, except you get into weirdo fanatics like the Taliban taking over, right? Who are not traditionally Muslims have been very relaxed towards homosexuality, and you'll have 9th century poetry from the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad talking about how much he loves men and all that stuff. So it was always a very relaxed culture. It was more like don't ask, don't tell, right? And that was normative because in a Muslim culture historically have been sex segregated, right? Men and women tend to be in their own worlds. And so in that environment, a lot of same-sex contact happens, right? I mean, that just happens, right? And so people just don't talk about it. And so it was very, very relaxed towards it, even though the official stance was, "It's wrong, don't do it," right? And in places like Iran, surprisingly enough to a lot of people, Iran today supports transgender surgeries. Right? Mm-hmm. It's actually Ayatollah Khomeini, surprisingly enough, gave a fatwa saying that transgender surgeries are a human right. I would suggest that is not a mainstream view of most Muslims, but that's where Iran is, right? So yes, we are more conservative on a lot of the gender issues, and that's not the narrative that's being promoted in our currently out of Hollywood. And so when people figured out I'm not the best spokesman for the woke stuff, they're like, "Oh, forget this guy." But this 21-year-old kid right out of film school, who's Muslim, but he's gender non-binary, will be more to promote it.
That brings me to a question I had for you.
I do too. I have that one also.
Okay.
So, have you tried reaching out to the new Daily Wire production to try and work with them on some stories and go outside of this, out of the Hollywood network?
The problem is this: the same thing with Bill Maher. Ben Shapiro was very successful. Ben Shapiro, he's not exactly very Muslim friendly. If you actually listen to his politics when it comes to the Middle East, he's very anti-Palestinian. He's like, you bomb these Arabs, right? So when it comes to that, he represents that element of the conservative voice that is pretty anti-Muslim. So I don't think I would be welcome there. That's the problem. Being personally very conservative myself, I have many friends who are conservative who embrace me, and others are like, man, I just don't like your religion. I'm like, okay, cool.
And historically, the Jewish faith and the Muslim faith have never really liked each other anyway.
No, that's actually not true. I have to say that's historically not true.
Okay.
It's the exact opposite. Historically, Jews and Muslims got along very well, especially if you look at in the Islamic world. Jews would flee Europe and come to the Islamic world whenever there were pogroms, right? Throughout Islamic history, Jews have been very powerful, going back to the Abbasid Caliphate, the Umayyad Caliphate, the Ottomans, Islamic Spain. They would rise to positions of minister of state, right? And they would today Morocco still has a very ancient Jewish community that goes back well over 1,000 years. That's still there in Morocco. That's very deep into the culture. The recent issue and the current conflicts are very recent. They go back to the politics of 1948, founding of Israel, the expulsion of the Palestinians. That's a practical nationalist thing that happened in the 20th century, but it is not ancient. And it's been a story that's been pushed that this is an ancient
and ironically, the name Palestinian was what Rome gave that name. And it was to the Jews that lived in the West Bank.
Rome popularized the name. The name of the area in non-Jewish sources, going back 3,500 years, going back to the ancient Egyptians. The ancient Egyptians called it Peliset. That was what it called in Egyptian, and the Assyrians, ancient Assyrians, called it a Palushtu. So the idea of that area having the name Palestine is pre-Jewish. I think, again, there's been part of the narrative that this is a modern creation. Aristotle called it Palestine. Herodotus called it Palestine. So, again, we don't have to get into Arab-Israel conflict stuff, but I want to say that the very fact that I'm saying this agitates some people. Like, wait, no, I thought you were conservative. Yeah, but that's also my belief on it.
Well, I apologize, and I stand corrected. Thank you for that.
No, it's no apologies. I'm just pointing out this is a common view. And it's a common view promoted by Hollywood. I'll be honest with you. I'll give you an example. I have a project that I've been pushing forward for almost a decade, and I've had major, like A-list Oscar-winning directors attached and then lost them. A project set in Moorish Spain, right, called Andalus. It's about the last years of the Moors. And one of the interesting responses I get is Hollywood becomes very uncomfortable because the project features a lot of the Jews that were high level in Moorish Spain and who were fighting the Reconquista, right? That is, we're going to get expelled from this country, right? And so the narrative inside of Hollywood is that what you said, which is that Jews and Muslims never got along. So, and a lot of that is linked to the Israeli narrative, which is the only place we've ever been safe is here, since 1948. We've never been safe anywhere. So presenting that Jews were very prominent in the golden age of Spain is something that was problematic for people in Hollywood, liberal people who have Nancy Pelosi pictures in their house, right? And it's been resisted tremendously because people say, that can't be true.
It goes against their narrative.
It goes against the political narrative. Again, it's coming from the Zionist left of Hollywood. It's interesting. So again, I don't want to get too deep into this stuff, but it's actually important that I shared this because I think many people assume because I'm religiously conservative that I'm going to agree with them on everything. I won't, and that's the difference. Going back to the issue of Daily Wire, I don't think Mr. Shapiro would like a lot of my views on those topics. I don't think he'd be interested in working with me.
So that was something I was curious about because I don't know too much on how they're setting up, but I thought they were having a bit of a division from, their political talk to the movie stuff. And I thought that the movie portion was more just to get out of politics in movies, to just make a good movie. And at least that was my understanding. I could be wrong.
Hope so. I mean, we'll see what he does. I mean, if we, I bless Gina Carano. She's working with them. I just pray to God that Mr. Shapiro doesn't bring to her, hey, let's go back to these old Chuck Norris movies from '82 where you're shooting up dudes with turbans, right? I mean, we'll see.
Well, I beg to differ that I think Ben Shapiro would work with you because he doesn't surround himself in an echo chamber. Guys like him are smarter than that, even though I just told U.S. Dutch Kitty that as much as I like Ben Shapiro, he says cringy shit all the time. Everybody does, really. I mean, I say
Maher's
cringy
example
shit.
on the other side, yeah.
Yeah, it's like we all say cringy shit to somebody, and but the fact is you got to look at some people and say, is this person wanting to live in an echo chamber, or is this person wanting to work with the best people they can find?
Well,
and that's why I believe Shapiro would work with you in a heartbeat, and you should put the word out to him.
Yeah, I kind of got the impression it was far more about just bringing art back. That's
getting politics out of storytelling.
But there's one challenge. There's one challenge with Mr. Shapiro's doing, setting aside whether he'd work with me or not. Okay, there's one challenge. The problem is that Mr. Shapiro is identified, by the industry as a right-wing nut, right? And so one of the challenges is that getting high-profile people, stars in particular, to want to be involved in his project, because the industry will try to blacklist them. Crews will not be a problem. Crews tend to be very conservative. The crews I've worked with, they're very down-to-earth people. They're normal people. They don't have time for weirdo ideas, and he'll likely be able to get good crews for his projects. Whether you can get names, Ms. Carano is a great name, and she's a solid actress. Whether you can get others who are willing to accept the labeling that's going to begin on them, we'll see.
Yeah, because what you're talking about there, if I'm reading it correctly, is you're talking about, are they going to be able to get union people?
Correct. Union people, and also just prominent people, stars. And there's people that I think are well-known conservatives like Chrissy Swanson, whatever, Dean Cain, who are solid actors, right? I enjoy them. And, and I think they would work for them. Would they get Tom Hanks in a project? Probably not.
I know I'm friends with quite a few conservative actors, and I won't out them.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, very few actors in Hollywood made me do a spit take, an actual real spit take. And Christy Swanson is the one person that made me do a spit take about a week ago. I'm not going to say what she said.
Okay, all right.
But oh my God, it popped up in my feed. I clicked on it, and I was gulping some delicious, tasty Taco Bell beverage, and it came out of my nose and mouth. Because I laughed so hard at what she did, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you are so slitting your throat in Hollywood."
Well, but really, I mean, she's look. These people have accepted that they are on the fringe of the power structure of the industry. It doesn't reflect their talent. I mean, will always be Buffy the Vampire Slayer to me, right? And so and Dean Cain has a long career, and he's still around, right? He even worked on the CW, which is I worked on CW. That's left of this town, right? And he worked on Supergirl for a while, right? And so it's. They know where they are, so again, they're like, okay, it doesn't matter now. I'm just going to speak what I speak, right? But that doesn't mean people are rushing to open doors for them.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm unsure if you're aware, but I know for the Gina Carano picture that they're doing, they've got Dallas. I'm going to script the last name, Sonier, producing it. So he did Bone Tomahawk, and so there's some credible people that are going to back it up, and I think we might see more join them if that movie is a success, especially if they can get distribution. But studios have kind of screwed over the theater system, so they might be more willing to bring them into theaters and show all those independent movies, which actually might
be a great business model for theaters. Because I believe that Daily Wire Productions will be successful with the audience. I believe anything Ms. Carano is going to be in it will be successful. So it would be wonderful, because I love theaters. The moment theaters opened in LA 10 days ago, I've been going almost every night to see movies.
Oh, that's cool. And it's expensive in LA, man. I used to live out there. Oh, it was awful. I mean, it was 40. Take my kid to a movie was $40. Because snacks are, well, I always support your local movie theater. They don't make much money off of ticket sales. All their money is made off of concessions. Yeah, so buy concessions.
Yeah, that's what I do.
But we got a question here. Ratings plunge for the second episode. Oh, it's not really a question, I guess. Episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Oh, thanks, T-shirt. I really appreciate that. Ratings plunge. Oh, do you like my sarcasm there? Ratings plunge for a second episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier dramatically, according to a source, and this ratings disaster seems to be a direct response to wokeness. I don't agree with that. I think that this is just more after effects from Gina Carano.
I agree.
Yeah, it's just this is how Star Wars, a Solo story thing happened. It was paying for the sins of The Last Jedi.
Yeah, and I heard it's not a bad movie. I mean, it may not be a great movie.
It's not. It's not a bad. It was
movie.
stupid in some places. It was enjoyable, but the fact is it should have made more money than it did, and it owed all of its loss to one dude, Rian Johnson.
Oh yeah, well, I didn't go see it for that reason. I mean,
yeah, exactly. I didn't either. I waited till later to see it. Anyway, Marcos, basically what you're seeing is just more of the plunging of Disney Plus, and I'm serious. They're trying to hide it right now. They're lying about their numbers, and the fact is, it's all going to come out in the wash in the end. It's sort of like Rise of Skywalker and all those films when they paid to buy out theaters overseas where they figured they wouldn't get caught. Well, where they get caught is when their box office doesn't match what they said their sales were. So there you go.
And also, you notice that as the news gets out there that certain services like, say, HBO Max, this is when it really starts to hurt because Disney Plus was touted and was one of the rising indicators of the popularity of streaming. As they lose, other services are starting to benefit from Disney Plus's losses. And one of those services is HBO Max.
I always said I thought Disney should have bought Netflix and just put their stuff on Netflix.
No.
Listen to me. This was before Disney Plus existed. This was before Disney Plus existed, before any of that crap. I'm talking about when they first were advertising they had a service coming.
Sven,
no, they would have made Netflix Disney Plus and utterly destroyed that whole platform.
And guess what? Guess what, Sven? Guess what? Disney Plus had been developed for years. Okay, Bob Iger had this on his plans, and they had been working on perfecting this for years. Okay, they weren't going to throw away all that work. There's no way they were going to throw away all that work.
I just wanted them to continue the Daredevil series. And all those, oh my God, that shit was so good.
I mean, it's going to be Disney doing it, but Disney's going to do it.
Yeah, I know that now. But.
All right, Cameron, I've got one for you real quick. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of an American author who passed away. His name is George Alec Effinger.
I'm not familiar with his work. I'm sorry.
Okay. Back in '86, he wrote a book called When Gravity Fails, and it was a cyberpunk science fiction novel. And it deals with a Middle Eastern culture, pretty much, Arabia, where the West is in decline and the Muslim countries are prospering. And in that book, well, it's a series of books. It's a series of books called the Marid Audran series. Okay. But he deals with a lot of, obviously Muslim culture, Muslim religion, as it deals with cybernetic enhancements and also transgenderism. In fact, the main character is pretty much addicted to many different types of drugs. So he's kind of he's not a perfect guy, which is one of the reasons why I love the stories.
He sounds like a modern Philip K. Dick.
Yeah, basically. Anyway, but Audran, the character Audran, his girlfriend is a transgendered woman who is a successful prostitute. Okay. But the other things, yeah, I know. But that's the thing. This is the thing.
It's part of the human experience. I mean,
it's part of the human experience.
I just like the words successful prostitute.
Well, she is. She's
I think
good.
she has a lot of clients, and it's popular. And yeah, look, like I said, I may have my own personal philosophical, religious beliefs. That doesn't affect my storytelling because it's all part of the human experience, right?
Exactly.
Right. So yeah.
But anyway, this all takes place in a place called the Budayin, which is the entertainment and criminal quarter of an unnamed Middle Eastern city, probably somewhere in the Levant. That's based on several geographical references. Okay. But to me, that was an awesome set of books because I was still pretty young back then, and reading this back in 1987, 1986. It was so far ahead of its time how it dealt with the Islamic culture and how it dealt with transgenderism and multigenderism, cybernetics, all these things that we thought we would have because the novels themselves are set in the 22nd century. So it should be, more or less going on,
Well,
Yeah.
I definitely want to look into them. If anyone's interested in science fiction, someone who actually approaches some of these issues about how Islam will be in 100 or 200 years, Kim Stanley Robinson, who wrote the Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars trilogy, which is an incredible trilogy about the colonization of Mars and how eventually Mars then rebels against Earth, and there's a civil war, and eventually Mars becomes free and becomes a rival planet, right? And it crosses over several hundred years. And the opening scene of the Red Mars, the opening scene of Red Mars is when early human colonists have established sort of a UN colony there, right? The opening scene is someone posts like, someone is trying to create an Arab-Israeli riot on Mars. So this stuff is still going on. Like someone's doing graffiti in the Jewish quarter that's anti-Semitic, and someone's doing anti-Muslim graffiti in the Arab quarter, and that's the opening scene, right? And so it's wonderful to see how he shows how our cultures continue their conversations onto another planet, right? And it's a very realistic portrayal of how Mars would be terraformed and how we as human beings would behave there, right? So Kim Stanley Robinson, he also has a great book called The Years of Rice and Salt, which is an alternative history book. It is what would have happened had all of Europe essentially been wiped out by the Black Plague, and that history moved forward with just China and the Muslim world. And so China and the Muslim world are the dominant superpowers fighting each other, and Europe is just off the map, right? So he's a very interesting writer of alternative histories and science fiction. But thank you for sharing. Can you give me the name? I'm going to look that person up. Can you give me the name again of that author? Because I'm interested in that book.
Absolutely. I posted it in private chat. I posted it in private chat, and if somebody will put it in the YouTube chat, it's George Alec Effinger. Okay. And the series of the book, the first book in the series is called When Gravity Fails, and
I've actually heard of that one, and me too. I'm gonna have to go get the audiobook on it because I don't read books anymore.
He's a Cleveland guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cleveland guy. Woo!
All right, I need to get to the chat. Yeah.
I'm an Ohio guy, and I'm from around kind of that area.
If it's not Straczynski, it's Ohio that Keith is always bringing up.
Spielberg, baby.
I'm a Brooklynite. It's fair enough. I've been in LA 20 years. I'm still from Brooklyn. Can't get it out of the DNA. So we have a super chat here that we should probably address, right?
Well, and I want to get to some of the other questions here. Yeah. Zax, who's a good friend of our channel, is there, and they're asking you, is there a movement or studio gearing up to take advantage of the giant gaps in storytelling Hollywood is creating besides DW?
The answer is no, as of today. The answer is right now, the industry believes that the culture is going very left and very woke. And so as a result, they've been pushing that. I mean, the funny thing is this, they'd learned in the last couple of years that doesn't make them money. But with the way the election has officially played out, they feel that, we must have been wrong. The society must be moving in that direction, right? And so it also is just, again, it's just culturally not really acceptable to even say anything that's to the right of left right now, just to, as we were talking, the Writers Guild just
it occurs to me that Roseanne Barr said that you've gone so far left, the center looks like it's far right to you.
Correct.
And I'm not a big fan of Roseanne Barr, but that was a very true statement. Zax, thank you for the.
She's right.
Zax, thank you very much for your Canadian $5, which is Monopoly money, as I recall.
I want to give an actual example of that. Just as we were about to go online here, I received an email from the Writers Guild, of which I'm a member, and the Writers Guild has, in the last few years, taken a lot of very political stances, and just sent me an email giving the Writers Guild official position on the Georgia election law, and so we're now being told as all screenwriters, the Writers Guild officially says the Georgia election law is racist for requiring voter IDs, and I think. And so that's the official position of the Writers Guild of America as of this morning, right?
What's their opinion on the China camps?
Statement on that real quick. Please. I just want to ask.
We're gonna hold on, Sven. Let's not get political.
No, it's not political.
Let's keep it.
I'm just pointing out that's where the industry is.
Not political.
To answer this question.
Okay.
I find it curious how it's racist to require an ID to vote when all 50 states require an ID to register to vote.
Well, again, there's many arguments. I have my opinions on it, but we won't make it political. I'm just stating that to answer this question, the industry is very left right now in its official narrative, right? Mm-hmm. Privately, people are not. Publicly, they have to be, right? And so privately, people have said to me, yeah, I don't like what Biden's doing. Don't tell anybody what I said, right? And so, whatever. So that's where we are. So there is no movement in the industry to open up the narrative right now towards the broader audience. It had begun after the failure of Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters woke remake, Charlie
terrible film.
Of Terminator, after failures of Birds of Prey, which had all been marketed as woke movies as if they weren't. The industry had begun in beginning of 2020 to start gearing away from that. Then the events of 2020 happened, the political events happened, the riots happened, the election happened. So as a result of all of those things, the industry has now gone back to a very progressive, very left political stance publicly, even if it thinks it's not going to make them money, just because they all got to keep their jobs.
If they turn off Twitter
and keep their jobs,
if they turn off Twitter, there's no more issue. And the people yelling at you on Twitter aren't the ones actually paying any money to see what you're doing. They don't care. They just care about the woke points they get for virtue signaling online.
And remember, the decisions are not being made. This is a corporate culture with a huge corporation. No one is thinking about the bottom line of the corporation. Everyone is thinking about, how do I keep my job for another 6 months? And so how do I keep my job? It's to fit in. It's to go to the right parties with the right people and not be a controversial figure and not be someone who is seen as a political outcast. And then when inevitably the shakeup happens at Disney or wherever I'm working, I got my next job at Warner Brothers because I'm liked. I have been the other person. I've been the person who's been willing to state my religious and political views, and it has not helped my career. So I'm the living example of that, of work. People have said, I'm not going to hire that guy, right? Oh, he's perfect for this. I'm not going to hire him. Right. And even though I know he will do a better job than the person I'm going to hire, because I don't like what he stands for, even if he's a nice person personally. So I have survived that, but I'm definitely a publicly known figure in the industry as someone who is, someone once, a very prominent screenwriter on Twitter, didn't like something I was saying and tweeted me, why do you have to be such a contrarian jerk all the time? I'm like, no, these are my actual beliefs. They're just contrary to what you believe. But that's the view. It's like, I'm the contrarian jerk. And so
and that's the sad part. Like, they have to put you in a box, and you cannot go outside of that. And
I have, and my career is going to be.
You can't have a discussion about these topics with them without them insulting you personally. It's never about the views to them. It's always about, oh, you're this and that because you think this way.
Well, and the thing is this. My politics may not be for everyone's, certainly in my industry, may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I think I'm generally a personable person. I'd like to believe I'm a good person that likes to work with people. The people who have been most voluble about their politics are often very bad people. In the shows that I've worked on, the people that are the most woke are people that will backstab you, that are racist, that are doing all these terrible things that they are hiding behind the political image, right? And I'm a straightforward guy, and it's funny that I have more difficulty getting work than these people who are really bad human beings but are saying the right things.
Well, I also believe, and I really need to get to the chat here, but I want to point out that a lot of these people who are woke in Hollywood are hiding in the skirt tails of basically the Liberal Party or Democratic Party, when in fact they aren't. They're far, far left of that. And because you got like Keith, my buddy who's nodding there, who is what is referred to as a blue dog Democrat. And they don't appreciate people using their party for this bullshit. And
I think that's why the Democratic Party don't appreciate it, but the narrative is where it is. Yeah,
it is where it is. So let's get in there. Tim Tingle, first of all, I want to point out that the woke stuff in Solo was meant to be a stab at Kathleen Kennedy. That is why they were Miller and what's his name were fired. That robot, the co-pilot, was a direct dig at Kathleen Kennedy's feminism. And if you look at her, she is a parody of a feminist. She's not a feminist. She's a parody of a feminist. And that was, what is that other guy's name? Miller's partner. I forget.
Lord?
But yeah, Lord and Miller were poking fun at Kennedy. And she knew it. And that was why she hated them.
That's why they fired 80% of the way into the movie. Normally, if you don't like the movie, in the first day. After the first day, I remember on the first day of dailies on Twilight Zone, my very first experience, we got our first day of dailies from the set. I was so excited watching my first ever dailies. 5 minutes after we got the dailies, we're getting a call from the studio saying, "This doesn't work, man. What the hell are you doing?" That's the first day. We better fix this show. We're all canceled, right? And so 80% of the movie, something else happened.
Yeah. So just to let you know, Tim, the woke stuff that was in there with that character, because that is the most woke character in the film, it was in there as a tongue-in-cheek poke at Kathleen Kennedy, and Kennedy doesn't have a sense of humor.
Well, she's very thin-skinned. I mean, and I will say this because I'm sure by now she knows who I am. She's like, "Who the hell is this Pakistani? Who's this guy keep talking?" I think she knows who I am by now. But and I met her once 20 years ago. She won't remember that. But so mutual friends who are very close to several of the directors that have been fired by Miss Kennedy have been very voluble to me about how much they despise her personally, and they will never say it publicly.
Well, when that comes out about what Spielberg said, remember what came out about what Spielberg said.
She makes a good cup of coffee.
Yeah, she makes a good cup of coffee. But the whole thing about having this discussion, this creative meeting, and she's getting to sit in there and comes up with the single worst idea ever. Yeah. What if he doesn't get the girl but gets the dog? And it's like, creative people look at that and just go, "Who is she and why is she in this meeting?"
Yeah, but she's a perfect Hollywood executive. Like, she's a politician. She doesn't know. She creatively.
Well, that's her thing. She knows how to get. She knows who can get the job done, and that's what Spielberg used her for. And Lucas, they both understood that she was that kind of beast. And people go, "Why did Lucas put her in there?" I said, because Lucas thought that she had something that he and Spielberg have. And that's
she fell victim for her politics. She politicked him.
Yeah.
Breaking news. I think George Lucas has something to say about this. I shared it for you, Gary.
Okay, let's.
All right.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. So share it, please. What do you got?
It's in the share. He has to actually activate it.
Oh,
I don't know how these buttons work.
I don't hear. I didn't hear anything. I don't see it.
I still want my comment.
Here we go.
Man, I don't know how this is.
Let me drop Yeti's comment because Yeti's opinion doesn't mean shit.
Wow.
I gotta admit, that's fucking funny.
Look, I feel bad for George Lucas. I'm a huge fan of Lucas. I've read several biographies of his that were written before all of these dramas happened with Disney. And he hated the studio system. He wanted to keep his baby out of the studio system for that reason. And to watch this be where the end of his life is, I think, is a shattering of the man that he was. I mean,
this is hell. This is hell for him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't imagine being Lucas. I love seeing these weird run-ins recently. People post photos of running into George Lucas, in
like walking
the food court. Yeah, the food court's my favorite. Sitting down, he's got a newspaper and he's eating his food, and somebody just goes, takes a picture of him like in the middle of a food court.
That guy's worth like $8 billion. He's just hanging out of the.
He doesn't give a shit. He's just doing whatever. He's having his life.
Here you go, Gary. Post this one up real quick.
Let me see. Where's it at?
It's in the private chat.
Oh, well, fucking decide where you're gonna put stuff and tell me. Jesus Christ.
That's what I thought private chat was for.
No, I don't read the private chat because I'm paying attention to the actual chat.
I could bring it up if you want.
I've got it. I'm
okay.
Doing a whole thing now for.
I know that's why I was offering to pull it up so that you didn't have to.
Let's see. Hold on. Let me. Jesus Christ. Oh fuck! You guys give me extra work. I'm helping you. No, you're giving me extra work.
We are sorry on behalf of Pop Culture Minefield for actually trying to entertain you with something more than just words.
Somebody call Gary a wambulance.
Oh my God! I have got a pocket full of go fuck yourself.
Really? I have a wheelbarrow with go fuck yourself.
Yeah, there. I brought it up.
Because this is the genius of these guys. Everybody complains when I share a video, the audio gets really weird. But keep sharing. Go ahead. Don't share it from your own screen.
Hey, I put on my cat suit for you guys.
Fuck off.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Here we go.
I brought it up.
Anyone else hear an echo?
The interesting thing is they call it
Shut up.
pyroprocessing, but it's a molten salt process. They're dissolving this thing in a molten salt, and they're doing electrochemistry on it. Why don't they call it molten salt?
That never gets old.
The deep fake by Collider though was still the funniest.
I laughed at that. It was very well done. That
was the only time.
Share from your screens if you got something to share.
So
Stop
gentlemen,
asking to
I've got
share.
about 10 minutes or so left, unfortunately. So if there's any major...
Oh God, we're so tired of you already, Cameron. God,
there was too much testosterone, and I'm leaving. There's no estrogen to make things interesting.
oh my God.
Sorry.
And let's see. I'm looking to see if there's any more chats that I need to share here. USD, US Dutch. Oh no, that's his stupid comment about Effinger.
Brooklyn.
Madrid Adrons. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole series for you.
Okay.
Well,
US fears about bullshit.
So I guess use Dutch kitties from Georgia. Okay, yeah.
Oh, can you join the Writers Guild without ID? My guess is no. Those fucking racist.
I think there's a corporate process to get into the Writers Guild. Which
all the government is a form of corporation. I tell people,
yes.
What do you think we'll go to war with Russia over? And I'm like, no, because Russia has become a major corporation now, and it's about money.
Yeah,
and we can go to economic war with countries, but the odds are against us going to actual war with them because of money.
Well, we don't go to actual war with anybody with nuclear weapons. We don't. I mean, so
yeah, it's like
we use proxy countries like you bomb the crap out of Yemen to achieve your objectives, or you destroy Libya. That's what you do, right? Pakistan's like I'm from Pakistan. Pakistan's like, oh, we got nukes. See y'all later, sucker. You ain't gonna be attacking us.
Yeah, you attack third world nations. It's like, hey, Russia, I'm going to smack the shit out of this country that you like. I would do that to you, but I'll just do this to them.
Yeah, you and he go.
That's how we fight wars now with these major countries. And so buddies of mine who write, they'll go, I'm serious, I'll get 3 a.m. Messages from people. They go, do you think we're going to war with this country? I'm like, we will not go to war with China. It won't happen.
We will have economic wars. And
economic wars do exist.
Culture wars. We're going to try to disrupt other countries' cultures to make their societies unstable by screwing up their culture. That's what we're going to do.
Exactly, and we are in an economic war with both Russia and China,
and a cultural war as well.
Exactly.
I would suggest that those countries are very happy to promote. Certainly, China is very happy to promote wokeism in America, which will not allow in China. I've worked in China. I've worked in Beijing, right? They won't allow this woke crap there, but they're happy to promote it here because they're like, oh, Americans destroying each other. You go do that.
Oh yeah, they love divide and conquer. Yeah. We have a Mr. Tickled Trunk,
yay,
who is a fellow Canadian of some of our Canadian friends here that are in the panel. Mm-hmm. He says Twitter is the modern day, but we'll get letters. By the way, I'm glad you're on here, Cameron, to support me. It is quote, but we'll get letters, end quote. They've never been a representation of reality, but have power to push things because they're organized. And thank you for the Canadian $5, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Mr. Tickle Trunk is one of our favorites. Yes.
I've interacted with him before. So.
Yeah, he's just an awesome dude. And thank you again for the $5, sir. And so, what do you think? Why do people say, quote, unquote, instead of end quote, which is what it is?
I don't know, and I don't honestly care.
I'm Catholic, and I grew up with nuns beating the shit out of me. And if I said quote, unquote, I would have got my knuckles wrapped. It's taught in school it's quote, end quote. It's ending a quote.
Okay, that's not
unquoting it.
Culture. That's not entered the mainstream culture. That's on the fringe there, brother.
All right. Let's see if we got some more here. I'll be glad when Kathleen Kennedy is gone. Sooner the better. Thanks for showing up, Sox.
I think she's gone sooner. I mean, I just think all the activities that has happened since Miss Carano's, ungracious firing have worked against her. I think the situation behind the scenes is out of control. in front, it's all everything's fine, everything's going forward perfectly. Behind the scenes, I think there's serious chaos at Lucasfilm. I don't think she's going to sustain much longer.
Yeah, and Sven, who's on our panel, just to let you know, no, you're talking about Frank Marshall, my friend. That is Kathleen Kennedy's husband. That's the one who likes his coffee cold and bitter.
I'm going to stay far away
Give
from
that guy money. Keep
I
his health
think
up.
that guy has absolutely never taken anything to get his erection back up. He's happy to just sleep in a separate bed like Dick Van Dyke and
Mary
what's her
Tyler
name
Moore.
did.
No, it's pretty much like this, Gary. It's pretty much like this. Please, Kathy, don't touch me. No, please put the paper bag back. No. I'll drink the coffee. I'll drink the coffee. No, put the
All right,
tits
we're
away.
running out of time.
I've actually met Frank Marshall a couple times, so let's just move on from this.
I'm sorry.
No, we love Frank Marshall, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm
we
big
do.
fans of
I
Frank
just wanna move
Marshall.
on. Sorry.
Condo.
So here we go. We got to wrap this up with you. We'll stick around afterward. But in closing, Keith, I know you're the master of knowing shit. What is your final question to this man, Kamran Pasha, who we deeply appreciate for having you on the show, my friend?
You said that when it comes to a lot of the Disney stuff, especially with Lucasfilm, it's sooner rather than later. Do you think that sooner could be pushed along if another major company starts to have problems like, say, CBS, who lost 50% of their value? I should say Viacom CBS, who ran into a buzzsaw recently. And as more and more of these corporations start to have financial problems, do you think we could be pushing that into the sooner category for a lot of this stuff?
Well, I think each corporation is looking at its own crisis, right? And so CBS is going to impact, I think, what's going to happen with Mr. Kurtzman's vision moving forward, right? I think the CBS problem can impact that. And I think the Disney problems, which are very clear, and the Lucasfilm problems are very clear. I just don't think Miss Kennedy will be able to sustain it. I think they will let her go in the most incredibly gracious fashion, where she'll be given a huge production deal. It'll be called a promotion, more power, and it'll be just, please get out of here. You're done, right? But none of that will be shown publicly. Publicly, the more they praise her right now, the more the knives are being sharpened, right? And that's what happened after the investor call. So I do, despite my belief of where the industry is, like I said, nobody in the industry cares about the bottom line until they have to. At this point, Bob Chapek has to care about the bottom line because his job, what he cares about, is on the line right now. And the Forbes article accelerated it, right? And so that's why Iger went ahead, even though she was losing them hundreds of millions, potentially billions of dollars on Star Wars. Iger didn't stop her, right? Because his job wasn't on the line, despite the fact that the company was losing. Now Chapek's job is on the line, and so now he's got to deal with it, even though his agenda is not to make the company money. His agenda is to be the CEO of the company for as long as possible and enjoy the benefits of that.
That's true.
When finally those two collide, something has to happen.
Well, what we're seeing, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, are these career politicians that are these CEOs of these companies who basically are ready to dump the bad economy they created on the next generation. Am I wrong in that assessment?
That's exactly right. It's just Hollywood is a reflection of DC and vice versa, and that's exactly what we're facing here. And the next generation is going to have to quietly, despite the official woke stance. I think again it'll go on through this year. But this is also the year where the foundation collapses economically of the system, right? And so by next year we will begin to see, in my view, quiet, non-announced, shifting away from the political storytelling to practical storytelling the audience wants. The success of Godzilla versus Kong, right? The official narrative is this movie sucks. The official mainstream narrative of all that's being pushed by the critics, this movie sucks. I'm so excited to go see that movie tomorrow. I've already got my tickets. I'm going to go see it with a friend of mine who I have not seen in a year because he's not been willing to go out due to the environment, right? And so,
I've seen it 3 times, by the way, Cameron.
So
it's
fucking
it's fun.
That's popcorn storytelling, and people in Hollywood noticing, even despite the restrictions, it's making money. And so we will go to popcorn storytelling. It will be done quietly. There will be no announcement of a shift in politics, and they will keep saying what they need to say to keep the woke crowd on Twitter off their back. But the movies will, starting next year, will start shifting towards popular storytelling.
Exactly. Now, Marcos, thank you for the $4.99. James Wan and Walter Hamada are good friends. What is the project being with his project being canceled, that he was going to produce, which is Swamp Thing. Is there something bigger going on here? And I'm telling you right now, that cancellation was an assertion by AT&T showing its dominance over Warner.
I believe that
when it stepped in, and because already there was rumors coming in before the purchase took place that it caused Warner Hamada to cut them from 13 episodes down to 10 episodes. Mm-hmm. And then AT&T pressured even further, and it got dropped down to, it got dropped down to the 10, and all the rewriting took place, and immediately when AT&T bought them, they canceled the show. And I don't think that had anything to do with James Wan or the quality of the show. That was basically AT&T coming on and pissing on Hamada to let him know
the wrong show.
They were in charge. A great fucking show.
I have friends of mine who are writers on that show, and it's good. It was going to be a great show.
It was great up until episode 7.
Yeah.
Also, I think that also they're talking about the Trench. Also, because that was
I know what you're talking about. Okay,
the Trench, which is the spinoff.
Did it get canceled? Wait, I didn't.
Yes,
that was on Deadline a couple of days ago. Yeah.
Oh my God, Keith, come on, man.
I'm sorry. It was the Trench and New Gods. Both got canceled.
New Gods. That was.
I knew that one did. I did not know about the Trench. That sucks. But
I think it's all part of the same thing. We're seeing conflict between AT&T, which is consumer oriented, versus Warner's, which is standard Hollywood politics, right? It's a conflict that I wish was happening inside of Disney, because if Disney had an overseer that was like AT&T, then it would just be about making money, right?
Yeah, and Marco gave us another $4.99 just to let us know that I was thinking about the wrong thing. Sorry about that, Marcos, and thanks again for the.
But the answer remains the same. It's part of the politics of AT&T, and we saw that in the war over the Snyder Cut, right? AT&T wanted the Snyder Cut. Warner's was embarrassed by it because it made their executives look bad, right? And so they're going to.
Well, this is the difference between a customer-related or a consumer-related company buying an entertainment company, not understanding entertainment companies, and going, you know what? We give a shit what the consumers think.
And Disney is in serious financial trouble. It is not impossible that next year or even before next year, you're going to have bids for trying to take Disney over, right? And that I think will be a good thing. If we get a consumer-oriented company on top of Disney, it'll be good for everyone.
It'd be great if AT&T did it.
Properties first, though. Sell off some of their, the Predator or just some licenses in order to stay afloat rather than get totally bought out.
I've said forever, and I could be the crazy nut about this. I have said forever that they're going to sell Lucasfilm back to Lucas, right? And I don't think that's impossible. I think each passing day it becomes more possible. That's what happened with Power Rangers. They bought it for Disney bought it from Haim Saban for like $1 billion, and he bought it back at $100 million. He made a huge profit, right? And so it's happened. They already have the precedence for doing it when they mismanage a property and sell it back to the original guy.
And Lucas would probably want to get that back. He'd probably want.
Yes.
Sorry, Keith. Go ahead.
You were saying, Keith?
I was going to say it's also very possible that I think the first thing you're going to see is Marvel Comics, not the property, the characters. They'll keep that. The comics are going to go just like with DC.
They're going to follow suit with DC, and I'm still praying that it's Kirkman that buys it because I think he has a good fundamental understanding. So, but Cameron, thank you.
I have to start winding down. So, thank you all for your time. I hope that the broadcast will continue with some very interesting conversations. I'm sorry that we lost our script doctor, who I think would have been wonderful for this conversation. And if I talked over any of you, please forgive me. It's very hard because I don't see most of your faces, so I don't know when everyone's going to speak. So.
Yeah, that's Cameron, one of the problems of not having your face is, Cameron, you can't see you're talking.
Cameron, it is an honor to have you, man. I mean, you are out there getting it done and giving the people answers and just becoming the face of someone who not only knows what he's talking about, but is just allowing those of us that aren't where you're at to have a better understanding of what's going on. And I thank you for that.
Well, I'm honored to be just a member of the fandom. You know, there's been costs that have come with it, but there also have been benefits. I've made wonderful new friends, and I've actually had people say to me, "Man, in the industry, I respect your balls. I respect your balls for saying this, right? You know, you're not a total nobody in this industry, and you're out there saying this, and that even if it's made me enemies, it's actually made me a few friends who might hire me in the future. So,
I hope that you consider yourself a friend of ours. I work in the industry as well. I work for actually Dale Dye, and I work for Josh Becker, other filmmakers. I do movie posters and comic books.
Great.
And I work in the comic industry. But I hope you are a friend of our show and will come back again in the future.
I will, but you have to have some pretty ladies. This crap.
I'm sorry. I was expecting some better female estrogenical members, and I'm really sad that they were doing homework today. I'm doing homework. That's an excuse for everything, like my daughter.
Well, it's like
get those wigs ready.
I'm washing my cat hair, whatever. You know.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, T-shirt has a female. We can just have him disguised as a her because he has a female voice thing modulator.
All right,
don't turn it on.
God bless you all, and please bring me back on whenever you'd like.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, guys.
Live long and prosper, my friend.
Nice seeing you again, sir.
Very Star Wars. Guys.
That was great having him on. Mexican Iron Man gave us another super chat. This was truly a fantastic show. One of the best panels in the subject matter on any channel, period. Thank you all. Thank you, my friend.
An honor. Wow.
We do try. And I think that, we had a lot of good questions. So great discussion. So deeply appreciate it. I hope everybody in the chat enjoyed the show. I know we went an hour early, and I'm only going to go over by a few minutes just so we can all unpack talking to him and go over what we thought of that experience. Fat Steven, you first. What was your thoughts on the episode?
Which episode? This episode?
Yes.
Seriously, I'm not going to answer that fucking question.
Honestly, I've talked to Cameron numerous times because of Lorena, right? And
that's right. You're the one who hooked us up.
Yeah, I was, but that's why I was pretty much keeping silence so you guys can actually have your own perspective and own time with him. But he is a man of many words. Like I said, he carries his balls with pride. He speaks his mind. He speaks who he is, and he shares that. So a lot of people tune in to hear this because it's not a lot of opportunities where you get to hear from Hollywood or a member of Hollywood what is actually going on, what could be going on. And Sean, you're fired. You're not. Other than that, you're not going to get most people from this type of area who are going to be this blatantly honest and respect your opinion and answer your questions. So it's a good episode because it's genuine conversation.
That's a good. Well, I like your opinion on that. U.S. Dutch Kitty, friend us or whatever you call it on Twitter, and I will add you to our private
time
chat
out, Sean?
for teaching. I think you have.
Sean, I will time you out, man. I'll time you out.
U.S. Dutch Kitty, make sure to friend us or whatever it's called on Twitter. And if you're on Facebook, find me or Pop Culture Minefield on Facebook and get a hold of us so I can make sure. If you want to join us, you are always welcome to join us. Socks, I'll have to go back and watch this episode. I missed so much. Yeah, dude. Go back, watch the whole episode. It's a lot of stuff was unpacked.
Doomcock just dropped his latest video, too.
Really?
What's it about?
Well, it's about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and someone tagged me saying I was mentioned, so I'm trying to figure out what it is.
See if I can pull it up.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Don't leave just yet, but if everyone wants to tell Sean Cromwell to shut up, you can go right ahead. Hashtag shut up, Sean.
Let's
get that trending.
I don't.
Do you want it?
Wait.
You want the link?
It said 54 minutes ago that it dropped. Is that the one you're talking about?
He just said it was 10 minutes ago for me, so I just got tagged for it. So hold on.
Yeah, it's about Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Do you want me to put it in the private chat?
Yeah, sure. Let me go.
There you go.
Yeah, it's the same one.
Yeah,
it's the same one.
What are you, my dad? What are you, a complaining SJW from Twitter trying to cancel someone?
What if Fat Steven is your dad?
I'll be your daddy, but you better put on that Hello Kitty outfit first.
Very good.
Go out in the yard and get me a switch, boy.
Thanks again, Mexican Iron Man. You're a good friend. What are you, my dad? Yeah, I see that now. Okay, I was like, what are you talking about? Oh, now I see it. Okay.
I think he wants me to be his dad. I think he has a fetish.
And Zach, you are right. Cameron was a very good guest. I'm looking forward to next week. We've got Rod Lurie coming back for his second appearance with us. Rod Lurie directed the single best damned war film last year. 2021 was sparse pickings for movies, and absolutely was snubbed by the Academy. Fuck the Oscars. I've not watched them since the 2000s. They're a garbage show. They don't know what quality filmmaking is. And The Outpost singularly should have been nominated for Best Picture, if not two of the best supporting actor roles.
Oh yeah, that's the one with
Clint Eastwood's boy.
Clint Eastwood's boy. Yeah, I saw that about a month ago, and I was blown away. It was such a good movie. Yeah.
And is that not the movie? It's also available on YouTube for everyone to watch after the show.
Is it available? I don't know.
I thought you sent the link before.
I don't think
so.
Okay, then I must be thinking of a different one. I thought I saw you sending a link.
Look, buddy, you really need to stop huffing before you get on the show.
Jesus.
Let's see, what do we got here? Hey guys, Darius Munchausen.
What's up?
Guten Tag, mein Freund. Wie geht es Ihnen? Let's see. Thank you, Mexican Iron Man. Okay, let's move over to Sven. Sven, how'd you feel about the episode today?
I'm just humbled to be in the presence of all.
That's every day on this show, even if we don't have a guest. You're lucky.
I'm very, because I've always been an entertainment normie until I found YouTube and started getting involved. So I didn't know a lot of these things, and I'm so glad that he set me straight on the whole Jewish and Muslim faith. Because I was always under the impression of those two faiths did not like
if you
each
listen
other.
to
And
mainstream media or some even modern historians, you'll think is that Christians and Muslims didn't get along.
That makes
and
me
it's not true. They got along very well.
That makes me want to find literature or something and actually read about that, because I am a very big fan of medieval times, regardless of what area of the world it's in, Asia, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Native American. I love medieval time period.
It's fascinating stuff, my friend.
Yes.
Zach7 says, I can't watch award shows without Ricky Gervais. What I do, Zach, is I actually wait till the next day for all the highlights with Ricky Gervais when he was hosting, because that's all that's worth watching. Darius says, I missed 90 minutes already. Don't worry, buddy. You can go back and watch the entire episode from the very beginning. Tim says The Outpost is streaming on Netflix right now. That is correct. And I say, if you have Netflix, go watch it now. It's not that expensive. Go to Amazon or any of the streaming services that allow video on demand for rent or purchase. Let's see. Fat Steven says, is there a problem, Sean? And I'm putting the inflection on there for Steven, because I'm assuming that he's Sean. Huh? You coming at me, bro? Hell at Mexican Iron Man and Rowan. There we go. Yes, buddy. I don't even sub to Netflix after Cuties. Yeah, we did the same thing. We let it go. Fuck that place. Hail Pop Culture Minefield. Hail Fat Steven Seagal. Beat up Twitter. Yeti Cast. Sven. All right. Thank you, Darius. And call out quick and go watch it now. All right. And thanks for showing up, Sean. Thanks for everybody showing up in our chat. We deeply appreciate it. T-shirt, Yeti, and Keith. You three are left, so let's start with T-shirt. Your thoughts on the episode and having Cameron as a guest. T-shirt, are you gone to pee?
Well, if he's gone
I
to
guess
pee,
we'll
he can't
go-
answer you.
So we'll go with Yeti.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and I'd really like to see if he does try to reach out and see if the Daily Wire and their new production stuff will take him on, and what more can come out of the independent film side of things and studios that are going to start rising up. As it'd be great to see more stuff from him, because we know he's a fantastic writer. So I really hope that avenue opens up so we can get more. But it was a fantastic show.
I think so too. And Keith, until T-shirt gets back, what do you think?
He's always been great. I have seen him on so many other shows. He is just one of the best commentators on what's actually going on in the business. And again, this in my opinion really is Game of Thrones. What's going on right now? What is happening with all these companies? It's Game of Thrones all over again. The only difference is that we as fans have to live with whatever the consequences of what's going on right now. So the problem isn't just one person. The problem is a few people spread out at many different corporations and companies that are that actually have an effect on what we watch and what we're entertained by. And between Disney, Viacom, CBS, the BBC, just those three right now, it's nuts.
I feel
but
like
it's the way things are.
I feel like the real diversity problem in Hollywood is not about color or gender or anything like that. The real diversity problem is that there needs to be more diversity of thought. There needs to be more people with different points of view making stuff in Hollywood, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I concur with you on that. T-shirt, are you back yet? No? Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and call it a day. What a great episode. I'm so happy that we did this, and I'm so glad I'm feeling better today, because if I felt like yesterday, I would have been just crap today, and I would have leaned on you guys. Oh, somebody's got their Godzilla toy. Yeah, show it off. There we go. Keith has Godzilla.
Wait. So you don't have a rubber ducky, you have a rubberzilla?
Hey, that makes me like him more.
That is so awesome. Last comment before the end of the show. Zach says, great show today as always. Cameron has stories for days, and he actually creates original content, which isn't popular. Well, it's going to be popular with us, my friend. We're going to be going to watch it, and we're going to share it and make sure that, he gets out there. T-shirt, you're back?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. I wanted to get everybody's thoughts before we ended here on the episode and how nice it was to have Cameron. So your thoughts?
Well, I mean, what am I supposed to say? It was cool, of course. I like having celebrities on.
Okay, well, there you have it, straight from the mouth of babes. It was a fantastic show, and it's always awesome to have celebs on the show, which we're going to have a lot of. Next week is Rod Lurie of The Outpost, and I look forward to talking to that guy, and I think our panel will too. Hopefully we'll have some more estrogen next week, but we'll see. We'll survive no matter what. It'll always be fun.
We do.
Until next week, I'll see you guys later. And from Keith and I, Pop Culture Minefield, we're out of here. Get off
Bye,
our
everyone.
lawns.